So how are you at talking about death? Is it a taboo subject that you avoid at all costs? Because some people cannot go anywhere near the subject at all. Well, we always want to be really supportive, don't we, when someone's lost someone close, but sometimes it's hard to find the right words as well. So as a friend of somebody who's grieving, it's very, very difficult. Well, the NHS in the county are wanting to increase our confidence about talking on the subject. Let's see how we can inform you and help you this morning. We're joined on the programme by Dr. Deb Lee from NHS North Cumbria and by Miriam Baird as well from NHS in Morecambe Bay. Good morning to the pair of you.
Good morning.
Miriam, it is a subject, isn't it, that we kind of, I don't know why we avoid, because it's certainly one thing that is going to affect every single one of us. Why do we struggle to talk about it, in your view?
I think there's lots of complications about death and dying. It's the only thing apart from birth that every one of us will go through. Nothing else is set in stone, but you will be born and you will die. And people have really strong feelings one way or the other on death and dying. Some people don't want to talk about it at all. Some people are very open about it. But because this is something that each of us will do, we do need to realise that you need to talk about what you want. And actually, there's nothing worse than somebody dying and nobody knowing what they wanted, whether they wanted a funeral, whether they wanted a big wake, whether they wanted everybody in pink or particular songs, all that sort of thing. So and that's just a funeral. There's lots of other aspects of death and dying that we do need to talk about.
Deb, isn't it a case that some people don't want to tempt fate?
Yes, there's that. You don't get pregnant by talking about having a baby, and you don't die by talking about death. It doesn't bring it on. But we know the Western cultures are shy about talking about death. In a lot of other cultures, it's talked about a lot more. And the evidence is that the bereaved people and the cultures that talk about death a lot more manage that awful grief much better than the Western cultures. So we have got something to learn from them.
Miriam, this is Dying Matters Week. Hopefully, the title of the week isn't going to scare everybody off in the first place, because again, that's got the word dying in it. But it is about time, really, isn't it, that we took control and we became probably a little bit more adult-like and just looked at it and said, you know what, this is going to happen, as we said before, let's make some plans.
Yeah, I mean, we would hope that everybody, when they are getting towards the end of their life, they do talk to their family and their friends, because actually, by doing this, first of all, you're not leaving your family and friends left with an empty hole of not knowing what to do. You can put yourself into it. I mean, the one that we can all recently think about is when Prince Philip died. He'd actually done all his own deciding on what he wanted for his funeral. He talked about it. And it's relevant whatever your age you are, that actually we want to plan for the last part of our life, just the same as we, plan to get married, we plan for a baby, we plan to get to retire. We don't do planning at the end of life, and we need to be smarter about it. Just even if it's only just the basics that says, do you want a big funeral? Do you want to be cremated? Do you want to be buried? That's a massive piece of information.
When we're younger, we are invincible. We're never going to, we can never even imagine that this is going to happen in our lifetime, that we're going to die at some point, Deb. But again, as Miriam was touching on there, any age, whatever age you are, you should be talking about it, because tragedies happen, accidents happen, and your whole family needs to know your wishes.
Absolutely. And also, the the fact that children understand about death is really important. So we've just been through the most awful 2 years of our life with COVID, and some terrible things have happened. But there have been a few opportunities. So, for example, communities have built up, and we've seen that very much in Cumbria. The other thing, which is slightly obtuse, is that death was on the news every day. And so children were hearing about death. And actually, we know that knowing about things is much less frightening than being uncertain and stepping into the unknown. So talking about death and is part of life. And that's part of what we're trying to do with this Let's Talk Bereavement project, is to encourage conversations to help both the young and adults as well. Absolutely.
I shouldn't smile, but it does make you smile in that this is kind of your final farewell, and it's all... If you don't plan, it's all rushed, because decisions have to be made very quickly, Miriam, as well, about funerals, whether you want a church funeral, where you're going to go straight to a crematorium, whether you're going to have it in a little chapel, whether you're going to be, as you say, cremated or buried, etc., etc., etc. This isn't like a wedding that takes years to plan unless you plan ahead for it. We seem to spend a lot of time planning for baptisms and weddings, but yet your final fling, your final goodbye is just an afterthought.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, when you think that you can nowadays order your own customised casket and things like that, then actually there's lots and lots of opportunities to actually have thoughts about it personally, because this is a very personal thing. You may, you may want everybody wearing pink at your funeral, but you actually may want lots and lots of loud music. And actually, if you've not had that conversation with yourself to start off with and thought about it, then you can't really impart anything to your family and friends. And actually getting something written down, on the TV, we're always seeing about funeral plans. So people are seeing this on a regular basis. And as Deb said, people are very aware of death and dying through COVID. But this is a continual thing. This is not just now. This is forever. It's always going to go on. So it's how we encourage people to talk about bereavement, to talk about death and dying, so that we can have honest conversations and actually stop people from feeling overwhelmed or on their own or lost because they're not sure how they should be feeling, and trying to show that actually these are normal feelings. And normal feelings is fabulous. We can cope with that. We'll talk to people. You can feel better through it. But then once you can feel better about how somebody has died or how you are feeling, then you can get on with whatever else you need to do, like the funerals. Nobody wants to plan a funeral in a crisis.
Deb, just finally, what support is being offered to groups and individuals during this Dying Matters week and the rest of the year as well?
Yes, well, one of the things that we've done in Cumbria is, and it's not just the NHS, it was with the various voluntary sector services as well, is we bid for some money from the NHS charities together and the Community Foundation. You remember the Captain Tom Moore monies?
Yes.
So we have a program called Let's Talk Bereavement, which is a 1-hour session to help people understand the complexity of bereavement so that they can talk to their friends and to the people that they work with so they know what's a good thing to say, because talking definitely helps. But also some things not to say, like, you'll get over it. You never get over grief. It sits there with you, but you learn to live with it. So that is freely available. They're 1-hour sessions, and they can be, initially they're for organisations. So, if you are a charity that is supporting the aged, for example, you can send your people on this training so they know how to talk to elderly folk who've perhaps lost a lot of people in their care home, and support them.
No.
So it's to encourage those conversations, which will ultimately help everyone.
It's all good stuff. Dr. Deb Lee, thank you for joining us from NHS North Cumbria, and Miriam Baird as well from NHS around Morecambe Bay. So it is, I don't know why we don't talk about it. We do talk about it quite heavily as a family now, not in a morbid, miserable way. Absolutely not. In more of a practical way. I think it's because, we have had bereavement in the family, and we don't want anybody left in positions where they are even more stressed than they need to be at what is probably one of the most traumatic times that they'll ever go through in their lives. So, yeah, we do talk about it. So it shouldn't be... It shouldn't be, an area that you don't go to, really, as a family. I've already told my family anyway, they're so not looking forward. They're not looking forward to me going. It's not the fact that I've gone. It's the fact that I've told them, right, I'm going to have a good long 2-hour church service followed by a double booking at the crematorium. Well, one booking's 40 minutes, isn't it? So I'm going to have a double booking at the crematorium just to make you all sit and get a numb bum.